Well, as you know, we're now 10 days from polling day, and ahead of this year's federal election, the news streaming service Flash has conducted an in-depth survey to create a bit of a snapshot of Australia's understanding of politics. It's a snapshot of how Australians have connected to politics in comparison with other news events we've seen, like Ash Barty's retirement from tennis or Will Smith slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars. To have a look at what some of the research tells us, I'm joined by the Executive Director of Flash, Kate Brito. Kate, good to see you. Appreciate your time. What can the political parties take out of this research as they look to really tap into voters' consciousness at this point?
Well, I think they should probably be a little bit worried. Some of the newsflash results showed that only 11% of Australians felt confident that they understood the policies of the major parties. So with only 10 days to go until the election, that's a bit of a worry.
Every time, Kate, there's a debate during election campaign, we see this discourse about whether voters are actually tuning in, whether they're actually paying attention to these sort of big set-piece events with our leaders. What sort of reaction have you seen to the debates during the campaign, to the big set pieces?
Well, I think that it obviously showed the debate was, the most recent debate was a bit of a debacle, people shouting over the top of each other. I don't think that helped sort of get their message across at all. It certainly didn't sort of get any cut through about what those policies are, the things that people really need to understand. And I guess that's why we did the research in the first place, was to sort of say, it is important for people to be able to stay up to date. That's why we, in a news service like Flash, which runs Sky News, we want people to come and sort of understand what the policies are. What we did find is that people had much more understanding, as you referred to earlier, about pop culture moments in 2022. They remembered the slap, they remembered Djokovic's deportation, they remembered Ash Barty's retirement, but they knew far more about those than they knew about things like the response to the floods or the vaccine rollout. So I think that's a little bit of shame, and that's where the parties have the work to do.
And Kate, perhaps a lesson for those of us reporting on the campaign as well when it comes to your findings about the use of political jargon. I see pork barrelling, for example, not a term a lot of people are familiar with.
Yeah, 60% of people said they had no idea what pork barrelling referred to, and sort of, extrapolated about 1.3 million people actually thought it was a social media trend. So I think, there is that lesson for the pollies that when they're speaking on camera that, people really do need to have it broken down for them into sort of everyday language.
And I was interested to see that despite the state premiers having their time in the sun during the pandemic with so much exposure, even then, the younger generations are more likely to name members of the Wiggles than their state premiers.
Yep, Gen Z and millennials knew more Wiggles than they did state premiers. So, they definitely have their work to do with that younger audience. They are sort of people who are, more likely to get their news, through social media and, through pop culture memes, I think, than sort of, tuning into more serious news services. So the pollies really need to work really hard in that area.
Kate Brito from Flash, appreciate you joining us. Plenty of food for thought there for our pollies. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Ash.